Good afternoon, good evening, students. I hope you're doing good. Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're back with another lecture concerning literature. As you can see, it will be about a book or a novel by Charles Dickens entitled Hard Times. So I decided to make a group of videos concerning the book itself, in which you are going to find summaries and you will find some analysis, of course. Anyways, this decision is due to the fact that some students have messaged me and requested an explanation of the story or a summary of the story of Hard Times. Maybe it was too hard to understand, so I decided to read the book as well. So it is quite interesting as a book. I advise you to read it if you can, but otherwise you are going to find the necessary information concerning the book. When I say the information, it is mainly about the story, so I will analyze the story for you and summarize it. But I cannot do that in one video, otherwise it will be too long. So I decided to break it into chapters, explaining and analyzing at the same time. So today it will be about the summary of chapter 1, the first chapter, of course, second, the third, and the fourth chapter. So we're going to summarize 4 chapters. I will not analyze in today's video. The next video I will summarize the 5th chapter, the 6th, the 7th, and the 8th. Then the third video I am going to analyze the 8 chapters in one video if you want. Anyways, with that being said, I invite you to like the Facebook page of this channel in order to be notified whenever I post something new, and also subscribe to my channel if it's not already done. That would encourage me to do more and also help you out during the period of exams. So without any further ado, we shall start with the summary of the first chapter if you want. So you should know that this part is called Book the First, Sewing, the first chapter until the 4th one. So anything I'm going to talk about, you should know that it is about the 1st, the 2nd, the 3rd, and the 4th chapter. Okay? So the story starts with a strict, dark-eyed man expressing to the school master the necessity for children to be taught facts. When I say facts, it means someone is using reason, rationality, in order to get cold, concrete facts. So imagination is not allowed. It is only about facts. So in a city called Coketown in England, of course, a place heavily industrious, this man, this dark-eyed man, or this rigid man, is called Thomas Gradgrind. He established a school. Okay, he hired a teacher who is called also Mr. McCokenchild. So Thomas wanted the teacher to teach only cold facts and avoid any kind of imagination. So Gradgrind, or Thomas as well, visited the school and tested some of the students. And he asked a girl named Sissy Jupe. And a quick background about Sissy Jupe: her father rides horses in a circus, of course for entertainment. So Thomas asked Sissy Jupe to define a horse. The question was, what do we mean by a horse? How would you define a horse? See, she couldn't answer him. She couldn't define a horse because she was shy and also scared. Then there was a pale young man named Bitter, who gave Thomas a cold and precise definition. Of course, the last pleased Gradgrind, of course. The answer pleased Thomas. Then we move to the next chapter, the 3rd one. Gradgrind was walking back home and sees his two children, his two eldest children, of course, spying on the people in the circus from a hole in the fence. Gradgrind raised his. You should know that Gradgrind. A quick background about Gradgrind. You should know that he raised his children according to his philosophy, which means he taught them only facts, cold facts, concrete facts. He didn't allow them to use their imagination, so everything was about reasoning and rationality. Means it is the way they were raised. So seeing them in the circus made him furious, right? He takes his children, and by the way, their name is Tom and Louisa, and he took them home, and Louisa told him that she was curious, and she was defending her brother by saying that it was her who dragged him there, which means to the circus. Gradgrind kept saying what Mr. Bounderby would say. This is the end of the 3rd chapter. Okay, so the first chapter ended when this dark-eyed man, or Thomas, was telling the schoolmaster to teach children cold facts. This is the end of the first chapter. The 2nd chapter ended in when Bitzer, or the pale young man, when he answered Thomas, of course. The 3rd chapter ends when Mr. Gradgrind kept saying what Mr. Bounderby would say. So when we move to the 4th chapter, we are going to talk about Mr. Bounderby. Who is Mr. Bounderby? Bounderby is a wealthy industrialist man who owns factories and banks, right? And he was in the living room of Mr. Gradgrind, which means he was inside the house of Mr. Gradgrind. He was talking to Mrs. Gradgrind, which means the wife of Mr. Gradgrind, or Thomas, if you want to call him Thomas, to make it easier. So he was he was talking to Mrs. Gradgrind, or the wife of Thomas, about the poverty of his childhood. So we clearly can understand that Mr. Bounderby didn't have, let's say, a happy childhood, right? So he was talking about the poverty of his childhood and how did he manage to climb the ladder in order to become wealthy and own factories and banks and so on and so forth. Mr. Gradgrind enters and tells Bounderby about the behavior of the kids, which means he told Mr. Bounderby about the fact that he found his children in the circus spying on the people there. And Bounderby theorizes that Sissy Jupe, the girl who couldn't define a horse, might have influenced the kids to disobey the teachings of their father. And they both agree to go inform the father of Sissy Jupe that she is no longer accepted in the school. But before they went, of course, Mr. Bounderby demanded a kiss from Louisa, who is the daughter of Mr. Gradgrind. Anyways, this is a short summary of the 1st, the 2nd, the 3rd, and the 4th chapter. Okay, so in the next video, we are going to talk about the 5th, the 6th, the 7th, and the 8th chapter. Okay, and then the 3rd video are going to have an analysis of the 8 chapters as a whole. So if you like the video, please share with your friends. If you have questions, please ask them in the comments below, or you can message me on the Facebook page. Otherwise, I tell you, see you in the next video. Peace.